Okay, we've hit critical mass here. Thank you everybody for joining our webinar today. We are going to talk about the quantum threat to cryptocurrency. This is delivered by QuSecure. My name is Skip Sanzeri. I'm a co-founder and COO at QuSecure. We've got a wonderful group of speakers today and some very hard-hitting content for you. So hopefully you'll find this both informative and entertaining. At QuSecure, we're here to bring post-quantum cybersecurity to enterprise, government, critical infrastructure groups, and where our goal is national security. And the way that cryptocurrency has grown, obviously that is now a pillar of our society, very, very important. People, I think of it's kind of like when people asked Willie Sutton, why do you rob banks? And he says, because that's where the money is. Well, with cryptocurrency, that's where the money is, right? So we expect that quantum computers will be weaponized against cryptocurrency. The key is, how are those threats evolving? What do you need to know about those? And where are the threat vectors? We're going to cover a lot of that today. Quantum computers will enable power that we can only dream of. And we'll go over a little bit about the quantum side of it as Dave talks today, but these are amazingly powerful machines that handle multivariate problems really, really well. So if you think of things like genomics, chemistry and material science, optimization, weather prediction, aeronautics, all of those are multivariate problems, even protein folding. These quantum computers can be used for great purpose there for humanity. But as I said, we expect that they'll be used for other purposes, nefarious purposes as well prior to that. And we're trying to educate and make sure that people are informed on this threat. So our goal is to help with the cryptocurrency side here today. So we'll have Q&A at the end of the webinar, and all of you can go ahead and submit questions anytime at the bottom. Most likely we won't look at those until the end. So go ahead and batch them up. I think you'll see it in the Zoom links. There'll be a Q&A section below. And as we're going through, you can feel free to enter questions. If you want a specific speaker to answer your questions, you put their name there and say, if you want Dave to answer something, or Arthur, Greg, Aaron, we'll just, as we go through, just go ahead and do that. Or I'll direct the questions to the appropriate person. So, but why don't we get started today, and let's meet some of our speakers. Pat, can you go to the next slide? So, as I said, Skip Sanzeri. So I'll be coordinating in the background here. Dave Crothers on, my co-founder and CEO. Dave has a long history in Silicon Valley. Ran Intelenex, which was Oracle's largest cloud partner. Is also chairman up at the Band of Angels, and we launched our quantum initiatives 3 years ago. He and I have been together on this with some other co-founders, Rebecca and Costa, to help with this post-quantum cybersecurity piece. Aaron Moore is on as well. Aaron Moore is a QSecure advisor. Aaron is highly qualified to speak here. He has held C-level positions at DARPA, NRO, NSA, Northrop Grumman, Raytheon, and was heading up one of the largest satellite listening stations over at Harrogate in Manwith Hills over in the UK. And Aaron is also an expert on cryptocurrency and the threats. We also have Dr. Arthur Herman here. And Dr. Herman is a senior fellow and director at the Quantum Alliance Initiative at the Hudson Institute. His research programs include quantum computing, defense, energy, and other technology issues. He's also an author of 9 books, wrote a bestseller, How the Scots Invented the Modern World, and also was a Pulitzer Prize finalist with his book, Gandhi and Churchill, The Epic Rivalry That Destroyed an Empire and Forged Our Age. Most specifically, Dr. Herman has spent a lot of time and has done some very, very influential and informative studies on quantum attacks over the past 2 years. He has, and we'll discuss some of the results of those, but he's used very in-depth econometric models with 18,000 data points, which is, in my opinion, having been in this industry now, is the most in-depth set of studies ever done on what quantum computers could really do, the threats and the harm they could cause on broad scale. And when you hear some of the results of his studies, I think you'll probably, get a little bit freaked out, but we're here not to do that. We're here to educate and make sure that people start thinking about strategizing and taking action here. And our cleanup hitter today, Greg Bullard, is CTO, VP of Engineering at QuSecure, one of the experts in the field. Greg came over to QuSecure from Qualcomm, where he was VP of Engineering and headed up a lot of their cyber and attack initiatives. So we have an A-list group here for you. So with that in mind, let's get started. I'm going to hand over to Dave. Dave, please take it away.
Good morning, everybody. Hang on. Having a little problem with my camera, but I'm just going to dive right in, guys. So want to talk to you, just give you some general context about quantum computing, and that'll feed into the rest of the presenters. So conventional computing, it's gotten us very, very far. We've used it as a foundation for developing all our software technology. The foundation of a conventional computer is a word size. So it's a transaction. We process these things linear and they're really small. So a 64-bit processor, which is the standard processor out there, processes about 8 letters at a time. It's great for linear types of processing, things we can, linear problems that have really small amounts of data, but we run them very quickly. So clearly we've gotten a long way in linear computing, but there's a universe of problems out there that are not linear. And you've heard of NP complete or NP squared problems. And these are these problems that happen in nature. Richard Feynman 50 years ago said that if you want to solve problems in nature, you need quantum computers. And why do you need them? Because there's massive numbers of variables. When I'm trying to kind of simulate a molecule or predict the weather, that I can't use a really small 8 bits of information. It's just not reflective of the state of the system. So enter a quantum computer, and in a quantum computer, the bit is an atom or subatomic particle. And the beauty of a quantum bit or an atom is it can be 1, 0, or anything. So it makes a great bit. We connect those bits together via this other phenomenon of quantum mechanics called entanglement into a circuit. So I can create a circuit out of these, basically out of atoms or subatomic particles. And instead of the word size being 8 characters, it's now exponential. So a 73 quantum bit processor, the word size is equivalent to 2 to the 73rd, which is equal to a iota bit of data, which is equivalent to all the data stored in the world in the last year. In one instruction. So when I'm trying to solve these massively parallel problems like molecular simulation, or we're going to get into encryption and cyber, now all of a sudden I've got a way to very quickly solve these problems. And a year or two ago, quantum computers were still a dream. And what's happening is just not a day goes by now without some rapid improvement. IBM, Google, they've all announced million quantum bit computers in the 2024, 2025 timeframe. So this is happening really, really quick, a lot quicker than anyone thought it would happen. And so this is fantastic for these complex problems like molecular simulation, anything that has multivariables, but it's a real problem for cybersecurity as the foundation of all our security, cybersecurity, whether it's your phone or any device, the camera on your TV, a computer, a satellite, are based on algorithms. There are 2 sets of algorithms. The first is asymmetric cryptography, and it's just math. Crypto is just math. And you've heard of RSA or elliptic curve as these forms of cryptography. They are based on prime number factorization. So fortunately, conventional computers have a really hard time factoring prime numbers. Enter quantum computers, which will be able to cut through prime factorization very, very quickly. So now, as it relates to asymmetric crypto, we're exposed on many of the pieces of infrastructure on our network. The second is symmetric cryptography, you've heard of as AES. They believe AES is quantum secure, but there's also an algorithm called Grover's, which basically does a quadratic speed up, which has the potential to crack symmetric crypto. So next slide, Skip. So the problem, so we were faced with competition from foreign nation states, and one nation state is spending up to $100 billion to build a quantum computer. Its sole purpose is to crack our cryptography. And this is a very serious effort right now. And so we're in a position now where these foreign nation states, and these are foreign nation state threats primarily, and they're very well funded and very focused on taking down our power grids, taking down our banks. The first quantum attacks will happen. Arthur's going to go into it in a little detail. He's done an 18,000 point econometric model, but they'll take down our financial system. They'll take down our power grids. They'll take down all our critical infrastructure. So China and Russia, we should be very, very nervous about China and Russia. There's also this concept of steal now, decrypt later, which means it said that 25% of the global encrypted data is already sitting on a server in an unfriendly foreign nation state. They're just waiting for enough quantum bits to decrypt it. So if you are an organization or you have fiduciary responsibility for digital assets, there's a likelihood those assets are already gone. So every day you go without addressing this problem is problematic from a fiduciary responsibility perspective. And then the blockchain, largely dependent on elliptic curve and asymmetric forms of encryption, there's definite vulnerabilities and the like. So I'm going to introduce Aaron, who's going to kind of start walking you through the detail. Hope that gave you a kind of a high level view of quantum.
Good morning, everybody. Looking forward to this this little talk. I'm not going to go into everything about the blockchain or cryptocurrencies. As you know, it's a very rich field. There are so many things to go through. I can't do that in 10 minutes. So we're going to focus on those areas that are very susceptible to what a quantum computer might do to the blockchain. Specifically, I'm going to talk a little bit about Bitcoin and Ethereum. And we're going to zero in on these two major vulnerabilities: consensus vulnerability and transaction mechanism vulnerability. Consensus vulnerability is associated with Grover's algorithm that Dave mentioned a little bit earlier. And then the transaction mechanism vulnerability is associated with the weaknesses in the asymmetric encryption, which is used for digital signatures, specifically elliptic curve digital signature algorithm. So I'll go through a couple of mechanisms just to show where they fit in the blockchain and the construction of the blockchain so that you can better appreciate where these vulnerabilities exist. Next slide. So this is looking at how a block is constructed. This is the Bitcoin proof of work system using the hash cache algorithm. It uses symmetric encryption techniques and algorithms, the SHA-256 specifically. But essentially, it is tying blocks together by concatenating the digital signatures or the digital representations of each of the transactions and then the prior block. Where this becomes interesting from a quantum aspect is that as the network difficulty increases over time, the consensus of the mining pools takes much longer. And as you can see in this chart on the right, it's up to now about 70 minutes or so where the consensus reaches. Now, what does that mean for quantum? It gives that Grover search algorithm a much longer period of time to be able to look through the search space for all of those particular signatures. And then if you're using it as a weapon to manufacture a transaction or a block and put it out on the network and force consensus by having essentially 51% of the network approving that particular block. The papers believe that the quantum systems will reach this capability by 2028. So it's not too long from now when we could potentially see probably a nation state being able to seize the consensus mechanism within the entire Bitcoin blockchain. Next slide. The next mechanism goes into the transactions. So as you know, it takes a while for a transaction to be taken up by a miner and then included in a block and then put through the consensus to be added to the Bitcoin blockchain. Well, when you go in to your Bitcoin wallet and you look at your balance, what you're seeing is an actual number of different transactions that you've done, and these are called these unspent transaction outputs, that total the amount you see in your wallet, but they exist on the chain as individual events, and they're immutable, and that's the whole point of blockchain, right? So if in this case, a user A wanted to move 75 of his Bitcoin to user B, then the miners would have to create or mint new UTXOs to represent that transaction plus the fee that they take out. So as you can see, it goes over the network. It takes some time, and that time is what the blockchain or the quantum computer can use to attack this particular mechanism. In the Bitcoin situation, I'm sure many of you have already done transactions, and it takes upwards of 30, 40, 50 minutes sometimes for these transactions to actually be accepted and put in a block and then placed on the blockchain. While those transactions are waiting to be picked up, they're in a pool of transactions that the miners choose from. Well, now in the quantum case, because the public keys are much easier to solve, the quantum computer can take advantage of that. Next slide. And what it does is essentially takes the public key that's broadcast to the network, solves for the private key, and then creates a new transaction that gets put into that transaction pool that then the miners take up as a valid transaction. But in this fabricated transaction, the address of user B is changed to the individual who is trying to profit illegally or hacking the system so that they can benefit from that transfer. So these are fabricated transactions. The Bitcoin security mechanism in that is ECDSA, and a quantum computer in this time frame can break that in less than 30 minutes. So when you've got transactions sitting in the transaction pool for 40, 50, 60 minutes, and there is somebody can break that, create the false packet, send it in, and perhaps pay a little bit higher fee for rapid assimilation, then they can get in front of the legitimate transaction. So that's a problem with that transaction space. The other problem is that in the older blocks, way down in the Bitcoin blockchain, around block 170, they used to use public keys to send money back and forth, or Bitcoins back and forth. So if any of those old wallets exist, then, and they still have some coin in them, some Bitcoin, and as we know, a lot of people lose their keys. They, like famously, the guy in England who was searching through a dump to find his hard drive because he lost all of his Bitcoin. Some of those wallets still contain funds, and quantum has the ability to extract the private keys from those public keys that exist way back on those networks. And if those wallets still hold money, then they can extract money. Next. So this is just giving a high level view of this transaction pool. On the left-hand side, where the miners get to select what transactions they want to build the blocks, and then essentially go through the consensus process to be able to put it onto the blockchain itself. And you can see that the average confirmation time is steadily increasing. The other thing that you can also see is that they don't necessarily have to pick up your transaction. So if you were transaction number C, then you don't necessarily get included in the block. So the Bitcoin blockchain is, it's not time ordered in terms of fairness for execution, which is the vulnerability that gets exploited by the quantum computing. Next. The same thing can happen with the oracles, because if you can take and determine what the private key is from the public key being broadcast, you can change the data that's within the information that is being posted to the blockchain that a smart contract would be using to make a decision. So if you can manipulate that, then maybe you can manipulate the online betting world. Anyway, the whole thing is very challenging with the quantum computing. The other thing I'd like to mention real quick, it was on one of the other earlier slides. While Bitcoin is vulnerable to the time attack with the replacement of a transaction, a false transaction, it's not so vulnerable in terms of losing your money in a wallet, because there are a lot of public and private keys changes within the Bitcoin system, so your wallet gets updated. And unfortunately in the Ethereum, they have a persistent public key. And so in Ethereum, if there are coins, Ethereum, in your wallet, that persists over a long period of time. And if somebody can get that public key, which is broadcast to the network, break it, then they can take over your entire wallet. So next slide. The industry recognizes this, but there are a lot of challenges and impediments to actually becoming quantum proof. Most of the mining communities use ASICs, specialized circuitry, to be able to do the tera hashing required now to be able to go through the validation of the block. Post-quantum resilient digital signature algorithms, which are still being evaluated by NIST for the use in public and private systems, as well as migrating to post-quantum resilient wallets that use a quantum proof protocol to actually talk to the network. So those are some of the main things. I hope that was valuable. There are references in those slides that I encourage you to look at for more technical detail. It's a fascinating field and it's always changing. So with that, I'd like to pass my section on to Dr. Herman, and he'll go through why this matters.
Thank you, Aaron. Hello, everyone. Good morning, I guess, for those of you who are out on the West Coast. Afternoon to those of us who are in time zones closer to mine. Hudson Institute is headquartered here in Washington, D.C. And the Quantum Alliance Initiative, which I founded in 2018, has as its goal to make Washington policymakers aware of the degree to which quantum technology is going to become an increasingly important part of our high-tech lives, of our culture, of our society, which in many ways will be a really good thing. As Skip pointed out at the very beginning of his introduction, there's a lot of great things that are going to come as quantum computing, quantum sensing, quantum optics expand their technological range and reach that are going to be very, very powerful, and that really will constitute a second computer revolution, in my belief. But there are also a dark side to all these implications. And we've touched on that in a general way with regard to decrypting asymmetric encryption systems, but also symmetric encryption systems. And in particular, we're looking at today what kinds of threat a future quantum computer attack, a quantum computer, in other words, that's really capable of carrying out this kind of factorization of the large prime numbers that underlie our public encryption systems. Just what those implications are for the larger economy. In other words, what would happen? The question we asked ourselves at the Quantum Alliance Initiative was, what would happen if Bitcoin and the other cryptocurrencies found themselves vulnerable and unprotected to a large-scale quantum computer assault at some date in the future. Now, Quantum Alliance Initiative, I have watched this issue about quantum security grow as our Quantum Alliance has grown. We're now up to 28 members from 10 countries. When I first got started in this area, because I got interested in the national security implications of quantum computing and the quantum computer threat in particular. When I started in this with a conference in 2017, the first ever conference on quantum technology held here in Washington, D.C. We held it during Cyber Week when the city was filled with executives and engineers and CEOs for a whole range of cyber security companies and digital technology companies. And the big question I got back in 2017 was, what exactly is a quantum computer again? That's from the experts, that's from the professionals. Things have changed a lot. And now even the public and the government have become aware of how quantum computing does bring both benefits, but also risks as it advances as a technology. Just this year, we've had 2 national security memoranda come out from the White House warning government agencies, you better take this threat seriously and start getting your house in order in terms of protecting against the future quantum computer threat, whether it's from China or another advanced persistent threat that lies out there. Well, what we're doing is we're thinking about getting the other parts of American economy geared up for that threat. That's what our research is really focused on, is what are the other sectors in American economy and society that really need to be aware of the quantum computer threat and to start looking around for solutions like, for example, those that QuSecure supplies, in order to make themselves quantum safe and secure when that threat finally manifests itself. So the first study we did in conjunction with the global econometric firm Oxford Economics was looking at the econometric modeling for understanding the impact of a quantum computer attack on our power grid and the costs that would be involved for a catastrophic shutdown or persistent series of shutdowns of our energy grid and power grid due to a quantum computer attack. The second one that we've done is the one that we have just finished on cryptocurrencies. And it's the results of that study that I want to give you an overview for and spend some time talking about those. If I can get the next slide. Well, here's one of the interesting things we found out in doing our research on cryptocurrencies, not just Bitcoin, but the whole spectrum of cryptocurrency assets, was the degree to which we found out that Bitcoin, Ethereum, and the other leading cryptocurrencies have moved far beyond just being exotic investments for a handful of speculators or 20-something investors. It's really become increasingly integrated into the larger financial system. And we've seen this also in terms of the growth, the sheer size of the cryptocurrency market over time, that in 2020, you had you had about 6,000 cryptocurrencies who made up the bulk of the market in this area with a combined market cap of about $330 billion. And then look today, where the number of companies has almost doubled at 11,000. And we have a combined market cap of roughly $2 trillion. And although cryptocurrencies have had something of a rough ride in the last several weeks, and people have talked about and speculated about whether there's a cryptocurrency bubble or not, the fact is most analysts anticipate that cryptocurrencies will continue to be an important part, an even increasingly important part of our financial landscape. and just the degree to which institutions account for over half of the trading in cryptocurrencies today by value. The fact that so many large banks and institutions use cryptocurrencies as a storage of value suggests that it's not going away anytime soon, and that it's going to continue to be a place where people will want to park money and will want to carry out the transactions, including the speculative transactions that make up the cryptocurrency market. And that's going to just go on. Next slide. So what we looked at in doing our study is the degree to which a Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies would be vulnerable to a quantum computer attack because of their reliance on blockchain or distributed ledger technology, easy for you to say, as a way in which to protect and secure transactions within the circle of investors in that instrument. And what we found is that that the total value that would be erased in the event of a quantum hack of cryptocurrencies in the case of blockchain would be greater than the market cap of digital assets alone. That, in other words, what we were able to do is to look at what I will say is the ripple effect of a catastrophic cyber attack on blockchain as a result of this kind of malicious attack here. That we found that, for example, that in terms of direct losses to crypto investors, that this would include, of course, a loss in unrealized gains and loss of principal. They would come as the price plummeted due to a hack, disruptive hack. The losses that would come as a result of leverage and margin trading, and the penalties and sanctions that would be imposed on investors as a result of having relied on leverage in order to make Bitcoin or cryptocurrency purchases. That the stable coins, as they are known, the attempts to peg cryptocurrencies to existing denominated currencies would also take a massive hit as a result of a collapse of Bitcoin. That this is part of the ripple effect, that they will not be, in a sense, the last building standings in the case of a crypto hurricane. They too will be swept away in the catastrophic results that would come from such an attack of the kind that Aaron and Dave have been pointing out to you could be real and could be lie ahead in the future. Then we looked also at the indirect losses that would be the result of this kind of malicious attack. The way in which the volatility of crypto, the link to assets in broader traditional markets, precisely because cryptocurrencies have now become such an important part of the larger financial system, and the way in which they are now being used by larger and major financial players as a way of storing value. Then the loss that would come as a result of the liquidity crunch. As liquidity dried up under the impact of the shutdown and the collapse of cryptocurrency value, what would be the losses that would follow from that eventuality? And then finally, too, the last area of indirect losses that we considered in our modeling, what would be the loss due to the integration of crypto into Main Street finances? In other words, it wouldn't be just the big banks and the major Wall Street players who would be adversely affected or even wiped out by this kind of collapse. It would also be smaller banks, mid-sized financial firms who would feel the pain and who would find themselves in a deeply vulnerable position for a protracted period of time if cryptocurrencies found themselves exposed to, vulnerable to quantum computer attack. I'll just add two other things here. I mean, Aaron and Dave have talked to you about the distinction between Shor's algorithm and Grover's algorithm and understanding the vector of attack for a quantum computer on cryptocurrencies. I'll just add one thing to the discussion here to bear in mind, and that is that when you have a system that relies on distributed ledger technology, that it actually, from a quantum computer's perspective, it actually takes fewer steps in order to infiltrate the network compared to, let's say, a traditional cyber attack would involve. And the reason is because once you get into the blockchain, once you're able to insert yourself, which a quantum computer would do, as if you were a genuine and authentic investor or partner in the blockchain circle, that once you've done that, everything is exposed. It's like a glass house in which the glass on the outside is completely dark and is opaque to observers. But once you're inside, everything is exposed. It's a series of glass walls and total transparency that is actually one of the virtues of blockchain as part of the ledger, but which, from the point of view of the thief, the point of view of the malicious attacker, means that you don't have to spend a lot of time learning about where the vulnerabilities are, learning about the PK architecture as you would with any conventional company or financial asset in any kind of way. So oddly enough, the very thing that makes blockchain so appealing to the investor is the very thing that makes it, for a quantum computer attacker, look relatively straightforward and quick. So anyway, here's the next slide. So here's our overall look at what we sort of see in terms of the leverage, the forced liquidations that would be involved. 90% of the money invested in Bitcoin is spent in derivatives, for example. So that's a huge exposure that comes as a result of that. The stable coins, which, as we say in the report, are really should be known as the unstable coins, because they run on crypto coins that are pegged one-to-one to fiat currency. So the one collapse is going to trigger enormous impact on the other. And then the broader financial markets, that, as I've been saying, that Bitcoin is no longer an isolated commodity, and that in fact that there is a strong correlation, statistical correlation, in the volatility between Bitcoin, other crypto coins, and traditional stocks. That's something to worry about in the future. That, in other words, as cryptocurrency, crypto becomes more embedded in the financial system, that the volatility, the boom and bust dynamic that we've come to expect and accept with cryptocurrencies is going to start to have an impact on the way in which more stable markets, or what should be more stable markets and investments, are going to behave as well. Let's go to the last slide. So here's the bottom line. In other words, as a result of our report and the modeling that we did, what do the real costs look like for this kind of blockchain break, or as we call it, Bitcoin bomb, that would be the effect in terms of the larger economy, not just on Bitcoin itself? Well, the cost of the US economy, in other words, after a 99.2% drop in Bitcoin due to a quantum hack. Well, first of all, direct losses to crypto investors, we estimate at about $1.8 trillion. That includes losses in unrealized gains, includes loss of principal, of course, and also loss in forced liquidations of leverage and margin training, because that money also then goes down the drain in order to cover the losses, that come with the collapse of the cryptocurrency value. Then, in terms of indirect costs, as the contagion spreads into the larger macroeconomic realm, including the financial realm, we're looking at, we estimate, about $1.4 trillion. And then the loss in GDP due to crypto collapse, we're thinking it's probably in the neighborhood of about that 1.4, almost $1.5 billion. So a total loss to the US economy, our report concluded, comes to about $3.34 trillion. Bear in mind that this is all based on our analysis of present value for cryptocurrencies. In other words, in the 10 years that it would take, let's say the 10 years that it would take to reach a large-scale quantum computer of the sort that hackers in Shanghai or hackers in Moscow or Pyongyang would be able to use a quantum computer to do this kind of malicious damage. Think how cryptocurrencies will have grown in value, but also grown in terms of their presence, their omnipresence even within the financial system. And those numbers are going to look pretty conservative compared to what the level of attack is. That's a pretty big hit. And that's one in which the need then to think about blockchain as I do, as being a passionate advocate for blockchain and for cryptocurrencies, as the secure networks for the internet and for digital transactions in the future. We also have to realize that the future of blockchain itself depends then on the degree to which it's also quantum safe and quantum secure. That's the overview of the report. I'd be very happy to share our report in PDF or in hard copy with those who are interested in going and exploring the details and checking out our methodology and how we arrived at these numbers. You can look for the report on the Hudson Institute website and our webpage, Quantum Alliance Initiative. You can reach out to me personally via my email. Reach out to Skip, and I'm sure he'll be happy to pass along any queries about that report or about our other report on the power grid, or our forthcoming report, which is on the impact of a future quantum computer hack on the Fedwire system and how that would have macroeconomic impact of catastrophic degree as well. I'll be happy to feed them as well. Thanks again for your time. Thanks for your patience. And now I'm happy to pass the discussion along to Greg Bullard.
Arthur, thank you so much. So instructive and illuminating, somewhat scary. So we look forward to what we can do to help strengthen this entire ecosystem. So I'm here to talk today about solutions and preparation. I am a CTO and head of engineering at QuSecure. History in vulnerability analysis and cybersecurity strategies, things like that for some large semiconductor and design tools firms. So Pat, if I can have the next slide. First I want to sit back and talk about what you can do. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done by the cryptocurrency designers. These are the architects that are figuring out how the cryptocurrency works, how to get them to be quantum proof. That work is ongoing. They will leverage the scientific community as NIST is, and to develop the correct quantum proof algorithms. There's a whole nother piece to this, and that is how do you protect your day to day? Because pretty much every secure thing that you do in the digital ecosystem uses a public key. It's used for all your web sessions. It's used for identities, credit cards, all kinds of transactions and control actions that you have in your digital life. So the big risk is that if somebody with a quantum computer, and this is not necessarily a terribly strong one, probably 2 to 4 years is a likely window where it could be coming available. If someone's able to listen into your transaction, they can go ahead and reverse that, as Dave pointed out earlier, break the public key, and the opportunity for them is to be able to listen into your session, or to be able to impersonate you and inject control into your session. So this is an attack that can be executed easily across the internet. So there's a high risk there of this being used in the wrong hands by to take control and to take assets. I think we'll find it interesting that nation states probably aren't going to come out and target individuals to steal their money, but they will target governments and disrupt societies. But if it gets in the hands of, of the normal thieves that we see in every, in our interactions every day on the internet and in our digital lives, they will be happy to steal your money, or this could be ransom, could be just redirecting your digital currency, your cryptocurrency assets. So part of what I want to talk about, the cryptocurrency architects will help solve that problem, but you're left exposed because every time you engage with a server that is helping process something about your digital assets, your cryptocurrencies, you're relying on traditional public key encryption at the time being, and that needs to be upgraded. Now, you may have a crypto wallet on the web. You may just simply be, keeping that wallet as a, in a physical form in your own possession, whichever way you like to go. You definitely want that to be protected, so you're quantum proof. In fact, we're working closely with a few different players in this space to be able to bring very strong protections so that the transactions that you execute are yours, are intended to be what you desire them to be, and to block off that segment from you, the individual, into the system as being an opportunity to be able to be broken. So the way QuSecure is tackling this problem, you really need four basic principles to be met, in my opinion, to deliver you the safety that you can be comfortable with. The first is you need good quantum safe algorithms. This is the crypto algorithms. That is, standards based. NIST is in the process of doing this. In short, these algorithms get beaten up and abused by the international attack community. And if you find a proprietary algorithm, it probably hasn't gone through all of that kind of validation. So the standard algorithms, the ones that NIST will put forth, are publicly attacked and considered very strong. They do fail. We've seen cryptographic algorithms fail every plus or minus a decade for the last several. We saw DES fail, and then triple S and AES was put forth from a symmetric perspective. We've seen, other new attacks will always be generated. I'll argue that the quantum computing attacks that we understand right now are approximately 2. Quantum computers are especially powerful at doing optimization and correlation. So we expect that new attacks will be formulated and probably in a big flurry as the quantum computing capability, as the number of qubits increases, and that's happening very quickly. So as soon as there's a strong enough quantum computer, we should see myriad attacks come out, and those may be attacking symmetric key crypto or asymmetric or signature algorithms or whatever you want to do. They can be attacking all over the place. So we expect to see a lot of break of our encryption, and so there will be an ongoing process, in my opinion, where algorithms will have to be updated, new ones will have to be invented, and then publicly validated. So the key here is pay close attention to who is actually putting forth that algorithm, and make sure you use one that's been thoroughly exercised in the scientific community. Another critical element you need are keys. The keys that are generated on our current silicon today, whether that be a telephone or a smartphone or a laptop or pretty much any silicon that we've got, are pseudorandom number generator sourced keys. And pseudorandom number generators, they try to push entropy into them. In the attack community, you can definitely do things to mute or diminish the quality of the randomness. The best way to go is to get high entropy, highly random energy, entropy sources, and that generally takes a certified quantum random number generator to deliver quantum security, quantum proof strength. So the goal here is that you need to pay attention not just to the algorithm but to the key as well. Second of all, you need something, and this is really a targeted. If you're leveraging an organization, a bank, a entity that's serving a website to you to be able to do a transaction, a wallet, who are holding your cryptocurrency assets and making sure you have full control of those. Any of these players, what they need to make sure of is that there's ready adoption and it's easy to deploy the solution for post-quantum cryptography. And that means being able to swap out algorithms quickly. If we have a failure, it means making it easy so that you don't have to do a lot of installing on your endpoint, your phone, your laptop, whatever you're using to implement. So that is not an easy thing to do because of the myriad variety of solutions available for end users and for server systems. There's a great deal of sandboxing and tightening security every day, that happens continuously. We see the mobile platforms, for instance, continue to tighten security more and more. So those cause issues when you're trying to upgrade your quantum, your cryptography algorithms to quantum. That's a complex space. Takes a lot of attention, a lot of work. Next one is you need to be able to disable pre-quantum algorithms, and that is not something that is easily implemented or is really implemented at all in current public key cryptography. Current public key cryptography operates between the initiating client, the smartphone that you've had in your app, and the server. And there's a certificate authority that's in the system, but isn't really engaged in any kind of a meaningful way on a regular basis. It's typically they preload certificates and stuff. But the idea is you need to be able to control the negotiation for which protocol gets used, which quality of cryptography gets used, happens between these two parties. There are some wonderful attacks. A new attack gets invented every so often, but the class of attacks is called a Bumpdown attack. And what happens is by injecting some messaging, some nefarious material into the channel, you can force the cryptography to go down to something that's easy to break. So if you've gone ahead and gone through your quantum upgrade and you're thinking, oh, I'm running my quantum algorithms, but some of the time you have to go connect to something that hasn't been quantum upgraded yet. So the old algorithms are still in your system. They're still in your phone or whatever else. And somebody can come in and inject a message that causes you to go into a pre-quantum algorithm, or goes from a pre-quantum algorithm to the classic, the favorite, which is the null crypto algorithm. That's the one where you send it in plain text and you think you're encrypted, you're still padlock and you think everything's all cool. You need policy, and policy allows you to be able to control what algorithms get used. It also allows you to be able to audit who's been upgraded, who hasn't. And by the way, if you decide you still don't want to give up that Windows 95 machine that you love so well, and you're deciding to keep running on that, your bank, your cryptocurrency wallet, whoever it is that you're interacting with, should come back to you and say, hey, if you don't upgrade that by the 1st of July, you're not going to get to your assets anymore. You're going to have to call on the phone because we don't trust that you're not going to be hacked. So policy is a critical thing. Last but not least, the fact that we have this new computing methodology, this whole new system, and that attacks are going to be coming that we have not foreseen yet. Those will likely be generated either in academia or by nation states. Academia loves to publish, nation states never publish. And so there may be attacks that are present, that are leaked, that are put into the wrong hands, or even nation states choosing to use them for nefarious reasons. They all have signatures that they disturb the system. There always is a message sent, a malformed datagram, something that happens that is abnormal, because if the system operates normally, then it operates normally. So the idea is that you need to have active detection of any anomaly in the system. The idea being that as soon as the 0 day has been found and is deployed, the first time it's deployed, you want to be able to notice that something abnormal happened, and that allowed the entity to either inject a transaction, take control, do something that was undesirable from the normal operation of the system, i.e. you keeping your assets safe. And so the fourth foundation of our system is to have active defense. The active defense comes from doing some very careful machine learning and analysis, both manual and automated analysis of all the event stream coming out, the anomaly stream coming out of the system, and then activating countermeasures that are in the system, which could include, shutting down or bumping up an authentication need, or putting a set of questionable transactions into a waiting pool, to be examined by hand and make sure everything's okay to be validated. So the goal being that you keep control of your assets, and that the enemy does not, or the thief is unable to penetrate and take care of you, take advantage of you. So the short of it is, you need to pay attention to how you are getting into the system, and the cryptocurrency architects will need to take care of their part of it, which is really kind of remote once you think about all that middle processing that occurs through the transaction processing, the wallets, all the front end systems that are interacting with the users in these cryptocurrency markets. So that is the gist there for QuSecure solution, is to bring those four pieces. So it's something that you should look for if you're a cryptocurrency trader. It's something that we'd be happy to talk to you about if you are a provider of those services. Pat, let's go to the next slide. Excellent. Q&A.
All right, Q&A time. Thank you, Greg and Aaron, Dr. Herman, Dave. Thank you, everybody, for speaking today. Just a wonderful group. Let's dive into some questions here that people have been typing online. By the way, if you have more questions, feel free to go to the Q&A box below. First question is, with the recent photonic advantage or quantum advantage announcement in mind, how important is that type of qubit in protecting data? I can actually take this one. So we don't know which qubits will be the most coherent, the most error corrected, the most effective yet. You've got everything from electrons to ions to photons, even atoms. Now you've got groups like atom computing that are using neutral atoms. We don't know which one is going to be the most effective, at quantum computing, nor at, using for, say, being weaponized. They all use the same properties, which are superposition and entanglement. So theoretically, they're all the same. I think it'll come down to what will be more efficacious. In other words, which will be the easiest to roll out, which will gain coherence the fastest, which will, be the most error corrected the quickest. And you look at photonics right now, those can be operated at room temperature. You don't even need 0 Kelvin refrigerators like you do with superconductors and electrons. And then you look at ions, they're using lasers to cool them down. So a lot of optimizations still to occur. We don't know which ones are going to be the winners here. So I would say we keep an eye on all of them. And I have a feeling that they'll all be operated the same way. They still have to use the same sort of logical, gate models throughout those. And the only ones that don't use the gate models really are the adiabatic ones like D-Wave, but those are more simulators. So anyway, just some thoughts there for you. Let's see, another question, will the talk be uploaded online? Yes, we're going to have this on our website, and we will have it up there by tomorrow. So you can check back under our news section and you'll be able to see it there. Let's go through some more questions here. The question was about QuSecure and the fact that we have launched an end-to-end post-quantum cyber solution. Greg, this one is for you. The question is, will this be available on mobile devices?
Yes, not only will it be available on mobile devices, but also IoT devices, automotive, aircraft, trackers like GPS devices. Really throughout, if something is running encryption today, it can run post-quantum encryption, and we are tuned to be able to deliver the capabilities to it, not just TCP/IP, but across any network and across really any device. I think the only territory where we'll probably have issues are the dumbest IoT devices, these things that run 10 years on a AA battery and don't have enough horsepower to do cryptography. So that's about the limit, and from there all the way up to the largest computing. So and Skip, I think there's another here that I can answer. It's from Andrea, it's could a patch protocol be implemented on communication? And in fact, that is essentially what we are working on doing. The patch protocol itself, the algorithms are going to come from NIST. What we are working to do is make sure it's deployed quickly, easily, and in a way that is deep penetration into the market, so that we get the short answer is the algorithms will filter out over time in the typical open source model, but they don't deliver the full capability needed to be truly quantum safe, and it will take a while. So if it takes 3 years for an algorithm to get out through a standard OS distribution, and there's an attack, you'd like to be able to change your algorithm in a day or a week. And with the control mechanisms we're putting in place, that is entirely possible. It will be easy to do, in fact. So yes, we essentially are delivering a protocol upgrade. Essentially it's a quick patch that can be applied.
Thanks, Greg. Question from Randy. Now, Arthur, this question is for you. Randy says, I think the global banking system is more vulnerable since it's multiples in size, to the 1.3 trillion crypto market cap. And I know you did a formidable study on an attack on Fedwire and banking.
Right. The studies that we've done, simply because of both the size of the data that we're able to sift through and to analyze, but also because of the way in which it's just easier to trace what I'm calling the ripple effect across a national economy as opposed to international economy. But that would definitely be the next step that we'd want to undertake, would be to look at what would be the global consequences, or even what would be the consequences for individual countries, like Japan, like South Korea, like the EU, for an attack that takes place not there, but here, given the size of the global financial market and economic system that we're dealing with now. The more globalization builds the channels, stronger and deeper channels for interaction and transactions, the more vulnerable they are to a black swan type of event. And in the case of future quantum computer tech, we are talking black swan in terms of what the impact could be and the suddenness and unexpectedness with which it's going to come. An attacker, a quantum computer attack, is not going to advertise or give us a preview of what's going to happen, which is why being quantum safe and secure, being quantum proof, is even more important than ever in dealing with an unknown threat, with an unknown horizon like this.
All right, thank you, Arthur. Question, Aaron, for you coming up here. Ken says, curious, we spent some time discussing proof of work networks. With Ethereum moving to proof of stake faster and lower gas fees, how will this handle quantum attacks?
So on the Ethereum, they don't really have the problem that the proof of work system, at least the Bitcoin. So when they move to proof of stake, it's not going to change their vulnerability profile too much, because their block construction, their transaction times are so low. They're only in like, I think the average is 14 seconds. Quantum computer is probably not going to get that fast to be able to manipulate or introduce a fraudulent transaction to the system. So the real vulnerability within Ethereum is their reliance on enduring public key sets, so that somebody could extract the private keys and then take over the wallet. So their proof of stake isn't really going to help them. They're going to have to move to a post-quantum secure encryption set for digital signatures. That's where they'll need to go.
Thank you, Aaron. Greg, got 3 in a row here for you. First one, how could IoT devices, mobile devices, be secure from quantum threats while running classical algorithms?
Hey, Skip, Greg had to drop.
Oh, he dropped. Oh, yeah, another call. Okay, great. Go, Dave. You want that one, or Go.
Hit me with a question once more. Go ahead, I'll answer.
Sure. How could IoT devices and mobile devices be secure from quantum threats while running classical algorithms?
So if they're currently running asymmetric or symmetric crypto, so think of the NIST standards, like the lithium and the various NIST new coming post-quantum standards. They're just algorithms. So to be quantum safe, they're going to need to upgrade the algorithmic base to a post-quantum base. There's a lot of ways to do that, both for IoT and for mobile. And our technology, we do it very simply. We can actually inject the crypto into the channel with all the other capabilities, attack intelligence, entropy, et cetera, et cetera. So there's going to have to be a remedial effort. So at the app layer, like let's say I have a phone and I want to quantum secure an app, we can actually inject the crypto, all the sources of entropy, crypto, and attack intelligence into the app layer and project it out into the app stack. Same for IoT.
Yeah, great, thanks. And also, I think another thing worthy of mentioning is the idea of a proxy, which we've developed that allows us to be backwards compatible, because a lot of folks ask questions about, well, you've got legacy networks and you've already have these installed classic algorithms, classic channels, and certainly classic layers like TLS. And so how do you handle that? And we actually have a proxy that allows us to switch between quantum channels and TLS layers, which makes backwards compatible really easy. So that's a very important thing here. So Dave, maybe this one for you too. What does the process of using your solution look like from the client's perspective?
Yeah, so guys, we have a network of orchestrators, quantum orchestrators. So depending on how you want to deploy, and we can deploy in any way, we can deploy in OpenSSL at the app layer, we can deploy at the connector layer. So you're basically connecting to our servers, to our orchestrators. We're cloud first. So we like to deploy from the cloud, but obviously we're doing work in top secret Defense Department environments where you're going to want an orchestrator behind your firewall. So basically, you need an orchestrator, whether it's public, whether it's cloud-based or behind your firewall, and then you just connect to it, either at the app layer, at a connector. We give you a whole bunch of variations of ways to connect, and then it takes over the secure end-to-end comms, which include entropy, post-quantum algos, protocol switching, and then attack intelligence. But you just connect to our orchestrators. Great,
thanks, Dave. Manuel has a question. I'll grab this one. How many qubits do I need to encrypt the protocol? The only quantum part of any quantum protection today is really just the random number generation. That's truly quantum. So that's done by a quantum random number generator. Usually it uses anywhere from 2 to 4 qubits. And these qubits dissolve, and as they decompose, they decompose randomly. So you really don't, in fact, it's the most random thing in the universe. No one can predict how these things are going to fall apart. It's kind of the opposite of a quantum computer where you want coherence, right? You want all these qubits to stay together and be entangled and run a process. But in the quantum random number generation, you want decoherence. So there aren't any qubits necessary to create the quantum channels that we have, aside from just creating the quantum random number generation. Emmanuel, I see your other question too. I'd like you to send me an email on that. We'll take that one offline because I think that'll be a deeper discussion. You can send it to skip@QuSecure, QuSecure.com. Happy to answer that there for Emmanuel.
Yeah,
let's see.
Emmanuel, one real just clarification on your last question. So the algorithm is only a piece of this, that we can upgrade algorithms, but getting them to the endpoints in the network, doing attack intelligence, switching them over your existing fabric are the real critical parts. It's the orchestration. So so if you're talking about classical encryption and just swapping out an algorithm, we assume all algorithms are going to fail, and then we have crypto orchestration and attack intelligence to adapt.
Thanks,
but we
Dave.
can do that offline. Yeah.
Aaron, this one's for you. Well, let's make this the last question because I know we're already 10 minutes after. So last question from Gottfried. Aaron, Gottfried says, why is Ethereum not threatened by, he says, why is Ethereum not threatened by quantum? The attacker could in theory reverse calculate the private key from the existing data on the blockchain. And there is enough time to do this. Basically, as much time as long as crypto is not moved. Sometimes this means months or years for holders.
Yeah, that's what I touched on earlier. Ethereum is threatened by quantum, just due to exactly what you're mentioning there. Because it uses enduring public keys, it's easy for the quantum computer to extract the private key. Where Ethereum isn't threatened by quantum is in the consensus mechanism, because the speed at which the transactions are processed by the network doesn't allow the quantum computer the time it does during Bitcoin. As I mentioned, Bitcoin takes north of 30 minutes sometimes. A quantum computer with around 500,000 qubits will be able to use Grover's algorithm and to be able to then build a false packet. Within Ethereum, it's 14 seconds. Quantum is not going to get there in terms of the consensus mechanism. It's the public key, private key that's associated with the wallets that make the thing quantum.
Great, thank you, Aaron. Well, thank you everybody for attending today. Really appreciate it. And thanks for our team for putting all this together. Thanks to our amazing speakers today. We have these seminars about every 2 months. We'll have more on different subjects coming up. We'll keep everybody updated. And again, we'll have this posted on our website under the news section within a day or so here, once we get it to format and downloaded. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great day. Thank you.